Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome everyone. So something a bit, I suppose, normal for me this time. Got a little bit of gold gilt in here as well, which I'll have a talk at the end. I believe this is a piece of ash, basically because of the way this grain is here. You get this sort of like almost like speckled powdery effect with the grain. I have sanded this to 600, and if it is ash, I've not had a piece like it before, because around this side I've got the start of a piece of spalting there, got the black line, and you get this classic bright yellow patches as well. But at the same time I've also got this really dark pieces of wood in here as well. On the top here I've got some inclusions. I'm hoping to do something a bit more on the lip here, so I will try and probably glue these in just to see if I can keep them in place. Also on here I have a very faint crack, which I'm hoping comes to nothing. I might drop a little bit of CA in there. I don't want to heavily colour this because of the fairly big contrast in the wood I've already got, but what I want to do is I want to put some form of a stain. So again, I'm going with the spirit stains from Chestnut with their wood colours again, and I'm going for the golden oak because this should hopefully be fairly light and it will help keep these really bright yellows hopefully still fairly bright. And normally with these grain you would apply a black to start with and sand it all back, and then the grain would come out black, but because I've already got sort of fairly dark wood in here, I think that would actually destroy the whole effect, and it would make this, certainly this area around here, look just almost like black. And then see, that's gone in there quite heavily, and I've now lost some of that effect. So I'll let that dry off, but where the big open grain is, it's come up really nice. It's really exaggerated that grain, and it has lost a little bit of the darkness in there, and you can still see the spalting line on there, and the yellows now have just darkened up a little bit so that they are more of a golden colour rather than a pale yellow. The inside of this has now had a couple of coats of sanding sealer and knocked back, and I was looking at using the gold gilt cream that I've got here. Don't use this very often, and it looks like it's starting to dry out, so hopefully it's still going to be okay. And my initial plan was to gold this entire rim, but because of these inclusions on here, I don't want to do the whole rim. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and put some round this edge to see what that's like, and to see whether I then come in a little bit further. Now, because this catches when the lathe is spinning in the normal direction, if I use a cloth to put this on, it's just going to catch there and rip and make a right mess. But when you're spinning the opposite way in reverse, there's hardly any catch on there at all. So I've just got a bit on there for now. Started to put some gold on there, not very much. I think I might go with my original plan of sticking it all on the top. So I'm going to leave that to fully dry and then come back, buff that up, and then give the whole thing its final coat of wax. I don't know how well this shows on the camera, but I've got a lot of the gold gilt sort of worn away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another cloth just to try and keep burnishing this bit up so that it literally wears most of it out, so it leaves more of a trace rather than just odd little patches missing. So what that's actually done now, it's just took literally all the gold off there, but there's just gold in odd little bits of grain. So I'm just going to give that another coat of wax over the top here, just to give that a final finish. First thing, wood. I believe it's ash, pure and simply because of this grain pattern. It's certainly something local to the north of England, because this would have been bought from the local wood mill. It does have a very start of some spalting in this, and I show it hopefully in the video if I can find it again now. Literally there's just one black line appearing on here, which hopefully you can see on the camera there. Just one little faint black line there, and the other tell sign of the spalting is the really sort of like bleached out wood, and it's more visible inside now because I did give the outside a little bit of a colouring. I mean, the only way I can probably imagine it, it's like the bacteria draws all the colour out of sort of like the main plain wood, and it builds up then into those black lines, which is why you get those black lines. Now, I may totally be wrong, but that's just my thought of something that might be happening there with when you get spalting. And I did want to sort of try and darken up the outside a little bit. I don't know whether it's fully come off. The grain on this side I think has worked really well with the light oak colour that I've used on there, the golden oak, and it's really embedded into the grain, which I really like. Now what I did find as well is that because I gave this a couple of 3 coats of sanding sealer, when I knocked it back with the knife web, I think I actually probably knocked it back too far, and it's actually took out some of the colouring on here, so it's gone back to that really light wood in some areas, and I actually think it adds to it to some extent. Whether the overall colour works, I'm not sure, and the inside I've left totally natural, just with the sanding sealer and the 2 coats of wax. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to create something with the gold gilt on the rim there, and these inclusions sort of gave me a bit of a problem here. Then what I found as well was that my gold gilt cream had actually really dried up, and I remember from reading some time ago when I looked at it, you could use terps to thin it down. I think the problem was that because I'd added the terps and thinned it down a little bit, it was then a lot softer and probably need more than 24 hours to cure properly, because when I buffed it up a bit, and especially when I put the wax on, it just eroded some of it away and left all these patches. But I'm quite happy with that, because in the end I just decided to buff it right back all the way, and it's just left the gold gilt cream in the grain on here and in some of the holes, especially around this sort of like inclusion, so it's come up with a really nice effect. So why this shape? I mean, I haven't done a bowl or anything like this for a long time, and I was going through social media during the week, and I came up with somebody's picture who did a pot or a bowl, whatever you want to call it, in this sort of style. Wood turners don't usually sort of create that shape. That you'd usually have that sort of shape maybe on the top of a vase, not so much a bowl. Whenever you see somebody do things like pottery, they always create that lip on the top in that sort of shape. I just thought I would have a go at doing something slightly different on there. Yet another piece of wood which probably cost me about 50p because it was being sold as firewood. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks a lot for watching.